So our next speaker is Stephano Cetola. Stephano is the Director of Technical Programs for RISC-V International. He's developed and managed numerous open source initiatives in software and hardware over the course of his 20-year career in technology. Before joining RISC-V International, Stephano was employed at Intel, contributing to the Yocto project and working on Tiano Core open source firmware. Stephano holds a Master of Science ECE from Portland State University, where he continues to be involved in research surrounding hardware security and threat modeling. And the topic of Stephano's talk is RISC-V, the road ahead. Stephano, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see those slides?
Yes, we can. That's
Perfect.
Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for having me here, and good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on your location. Really excited to be here, have a chance to share some info about RISC-V, both high-level overview and also where we plan to go in the future, highlighting some of the real-time information that I think will be pertinent to you folks. My name is Stephano. I'm the Director of Technical Programs for RISC-V International. I put a link there to the slides. There's plenty of informative links in the presentation, so feel free to download that and click through as you'd like. Like I said, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of RISC-V for those of you who are new to the ISA. I'll go over some of the software stuff we're working on in the operating system domain and specifically on real-time. And then I'll just talk a little bit about where we hope to be next year, what our road ahead looks like. So starting off, I just wanted to highlight, let's see if I can get the slides to switch. There we go. I just wanted to highlight some of the RISC-V talks. It was really great to hear Muhammad talk about a lot of the stuff that they're doing there, and Renaissance is a recent member of RISC-V. We'll talk a little bit about membership later and what that entails, but we see Renaissance here and XP, a whole bunch of folks here, WCH, who are part of the RISC-V community, and obviously RTThread being part of our community. It's really great to see all these folks being brought together. But I just wanted to call out a few of the RISC-V specific talks happening. There's another one happening later today around WCH. Tomorrow they'll be talking a little bit about Ethernet and CAN. Excited about that talk, and then 2 talks on day 3. So a lot of stuff in this conference around RISC-V, and really appreciate RTThread and the community for having us here. So first off, what is RISC-V? For those of you who are new or have just heard tangentially about the ISA, it's an open source, free and open instruction set architecture. So it came out of Berkeley in 2015. They published some of the first papers, and it started getting broad adoption in commercial applications. RISC-V International came out of that. We're a nonprofit organization that's working on furthering the ISA, building the community that develops it, and fostering the ecosystem around it. So there's a pretty small group of us. We're under 10 people at RISC-V International, working in different aspects around ratifying specifications for the ISA, working on the software and the ecosystems that surround it, and working on peripheral and hardware ecosystems to help folks build interesting products using RISC-V. So you just heard Muhammad speak a bit about Endpoint Intelligence, and so I figured appreciate that setup, as RISC-V is trying to lead domain-specific processing efforts in those types of time-critical applications. So this is just a graph that shows the connected and IoT devices and their growth in the course of the next 5 to 10 years. Security is obviously a huge concern here, and so you'll see a bit more in slides coming up about how RISC-V is hoping to develop security around our ISA and in the ecosystem. But you can see the tremendous growth that's projected here. And likewise, and I promise this will be my last graph, here we see the growth of RISC-V, at least the projected growth. And really, we have seen exponential growth since I joined in 2019. It's really been quite a whirlwind. Tons of new memberships, but also just folks developing new IP, both open source and proprietary, that make use of the flexibility of RISC-V's ISA. And that's really one of the key points we talk about when looking at these different industries, how RISC-V can be flexible. So it's not just an IoT and edge, which we'll talk more about today, but RISC-V is really a community that is making impact across industries. So in automotive, we've seen progress in safety and security from NVIDIA and worked with them to form a functional safety special interest group. In HPC, we continue to work with the European Commission on RISC-V acceleration for supercomputers through the EPI initiative, as well as sharing insights on open source approaches to technology to reduce dependency on one entity. And I would just note that the HPC SIG has done a lot of work in the past year, led up by John Davis. It's a really exciting group to be a part of, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you could join in on that conversation later. And the future for RISC-V is incredibly bright in areas with legacy architectures as well as new arenas. So we have in memory semiconductor space, growth projections range from 6 to 16% on a $100 billion market led by flash, telecom, and consumer electronics. Industrial and automotive are close behind, and we bring compute and memory solutions to safety, automated driving, and infotainment. And IoT continues to be a really hot growth area. One of the reasons I'm excited to be here. IoT devices are including a broad range of electronics, household applications, automotive, commercial IoT for manufacturing, logistics, and transportation. I read a Business Insider forecast more than 64 billion IoT devices by 2026, driving a $15 trillion market, which are pretty staggering numbers. So one of the key takeaways here from this slide is really just that while RISC-V is really strong in IoT and edge, I think that we're making headway in a lot of other verticals as well, and we're excited to see these groups grow. I mentioned the safety critical, a special interest group that's meeting. They're really pioneering the work that I think will be critical for automotive, and so we're working with a lot of our members that are in that space to try and foster growth in that area, and to even outside of membership, folks that are just working in our sort of related communities, encouraging cross-pollination of ideas and efforts there. So I've talked a lot about membership, just what our members are doing. We are just shy of 3,000 members total in RISC-V. About 300 of those are corporate members. So we have two membership tiers: corporate membership, which is either strategic or premier. You can think of that as, if your company joins RISC-V, they would join at one of those levels. But I always mention on this slide that individual membership is free, and it accounts for the large majority of our membership. We have an incredible amount of contributions happening in our community that come from folks who join RISC-V not as part of their organization, but as individual members. And those contributions are some of the ones that are critical to fostering a healthy ecosystem. We have a split membership between North America, Europe, and APAC. And the contributions that we have to tools like GCC and LLVM, those wouldn't be possible without our individual members. And so it really is, again, having joined in 2019, it's amazing to see the growth that RISC-V has gone through, not just in our corporate membership, because we do obviously appreciate those members, Renaissance and NXP being two of them, but our individual membership growth has been really staggering, and it's been amazing to work with all these folks from different backgrounds. So one, I just wanted to highlight the momentum we have in China. We had a couple of exciting things happen just recently. Star5 worked with the BeagleBoard folks on a Beagle 5 board that they released last year, and they're hoping to come out with the second rev of that board this year. So that's something that I know, especially in the open source community, is very hotly anticipated, and it really couldn't be done with folks from Star5 and from Shenzhen, the Seed Studio, and BeagleBoard, really uniting, coming together at RISC-V to do that work. And I know Star5 also released their Vision 5 board, which we are excitedly distributing. I'll talk a little bit about our developer board program in a few slides, but that's some really exciting work going on there. The Chinese Academy of Science, I can honestly say that doing my day job would be extremely hard without the China Academy of Science helping. We have a program called called our developer partners. This is where we allow members to come together specifically to solve problems that stand in the way of ratifying specifications. So if you're trying to ratify a specification, but you're having problems getting contributions in GCC or having contributions to QEMU, this is a group that comes together and a group of students along with our corporate members work on these projects together. And it really is amazing the amount of work that gets done there. Really complex tasks, not just in compilers and emulation, but also tasks in simulation and formal verification. So things that normally would be hard for any organization to do internally, we're able to accomplish using the power of the community. And it's really exciting to see that group come together. We really appreciate having them. I'm sure many of you are aware, if you're aware of RISC-V, that Alibaba has released some really exciting open source cores. So if you haven't heard, please please go Google that. That's some of the stuff that we're really excited to see that move forward in the coming years. So a lot of opportunities, a lot of stuff going on in China, and we're really appreciative of all the work going on there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the the operating system ecosystem in general for RISC-V. So, we're here at a real-time operating system conference, but I wanted to give you a high-level picture because operating systems are really a key component of our ecosystem. I mentioned that RISC-V is really involved in developing ISA specifications. So that's pretty monumental in terms of a task set by itself. But without the operating systems, without the software in the ecosystem, all of those specifications are essentially hindered from growing. So we need strong operating system support, strong bootloader support, and a robust application and infrastructure to run the programs that folks need in the field. And so I just wanted to give a high-level overview of that. Here you can see sort of the ecosystem in general. I've been working in open source more than 10 years, and I can say it's a privilege to work at RISC-V where I get to interact with so many different open source communities, more than in any other stage in my career. And it's really kind of humbling to see all of these groups come together, many of whom have never had to work together before in terms of the way in which we're developing this ISA. So we're really pioneering a new area of open source development, taking open source all the way down to the instruction set architecture, and working with these groups, specifically with the kernel groups and developing application binary interfaces, has really been an adventure in how we develop a strong community around these really complex topics. So you can see operating systems I'll focus on here are kind of at the center of that chart, and both metaphorically and physically. The operating systems are kind of at the heart of what we do in the software world, but they're very much dependent on all the layers beneath them. And so developing a strong operating system ecosystem is really the key to the success of all the stack on top of it. So obviously we have robust Linux and BSD support. The support in the kernel has been there for a long time. FreeBSD specifically recently joined as a member, so we're excited to have them, and we're excited to work with all the BSD communities that are out there. OpenSUSE and Fedora have been valuable members over the past few years. I would call out specifically with the the Beagle 5, one of the Beagle boards that came out. That was supported by the Fedora community, and we were really happy to work with them to get one of the first sort of hobbyist boards that is available out there running Linux as soon as possible. And we're also working with OpenSUSE folks. I mean, as we have hardware, as you can imagine, with the chip shortage, hardware has been a little tough to come by in the past couple of years. But working with these folks as we get hardware in to get the hardware into the hands of these engineers so that these operating systems can be as robust as possible has been one of the primary goals of RISC-V International, and it's one of the things that we're really proud of. I would mention too, we've been working with the Ubuntu folks. We have a couple of community members from Ubuntu that are really valuable parts of our security committees, but a couple other groups as well. And it's just really exciting to see all these different operating system vendors come together around an open source hardware project that's really pioneering new ways of working in open source. So kind of moving down the stack, so to speak, into embedded Linux and Android. We've had Rtos support for quite a while. For those of you who don't know, Rtos is an embedded Linux platform, build system, and tool set. We've had a layer for that Meta RISC-V for quite a while now. And we're still working to improve support with Rtos. So we'd really like to be a part of their build infrastructure. And that effort really requires hardware. So we're working to get the hardware needed and the membership for those hardware projects that's needed to support Rtos. But we really hope to be a part of their build infrastructure and be a bigger part of their community in the future, even more so than we are already today. Buildroot, we're really excited to have them on board too. I worked embedded for a large portion of my career, and I was excited in that Buildroot and Rtos were always very complementary to me. They worked hand in hand, and so it was great to see that both of those solutions were available for RISC-V when I joined. Android support is something that's ongoing. A lot of that work is being done at Alibaba, but we've circled in the community to work on that. One thing you might know if you've worked on Android is that you need hardware to upstream a lot of that work. So we're working on getting some hardware, some mobile devices that can actually be used with in partnership with the Android community so that we can upstream that work. Probably most important for this talk, the RISC-V Rtos support. We have RTThread obviously support. We were really excited to see them join, and we're really excited on all the work that's going on in the community there. We'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. But we do also support Zephyr and FreeRTOS, so we are sort of an agnostic community when it comes to RTOSes. And, you know, in my mind, it's really great to have all these different RTOSes come together under the RISC-V banner because it really does help them improve their community. We're talking about creating a tutorial for RTOSes, just a general high-level tutorial at RISC-V, and that will include, you know, FreeRTOS, Zephyr, and RTThread. So, you know, that tutorial is just one of the ways that we can say, you know, how can we support the RTOS community as a whole, and specifically, how can we be a benefit to folks like RTThread and Zephyr and FreeRTOS? So specifically calling out some of the RTThread stuff that's going on. This is just a list of some of the hardware that you can go out there and get that actually works with RTThread, and it's exciting to see all the stuff on here. I mean, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but some of the 32-bit stuff that runs RISC-V, you can see stuff from Sci-Fi and from NXP on there, but also Gigadevice and Bluetrim, WCH, who has we have several talks here from WCH and HP Micro. So plenty of 32-bit stuff that you can go out there and get, but also some 64 stuff as well, the Kendrite 210 and the Allwinner D1. I'll make a small plug here with the Allwinner D1. We do have a RISC-V developer board program. You can download the slides and click on that link. We purchase as many boards as we can with the funding we have, and then we distribute those boards out to developers with the only caveat being that they have to document the projects that they work on and then publish that in the open source community. So it's a great opportunity to work on something, getting a free board, but getting to work on a project that's interesting, and then getting some recognition for that project by publishing it in our community. Unfortunately, we are out of D1 boards right now. However, we're hoping to get some more in, and as soon as we do, we'll distribute those out to folks so that we can get more work going on in the public around there. RISC-V soft cords that support RTThread are listed there. Some smart EVB stuff from Alibaba. Specifically, the work going on at T-Head is really exciting, so we're glad to see that those are supported. And then I'd also call out Pico RV32 is a great, for those folks at the event here who are new to hardware description languages or just aren't really well versed in Verilog, that's a great place to start. The Pico RV32 core, in my mind, is one of the easier ones to sort of get your head around and start working on. So if you're new to FPGAs or new to developing with soft cores, I would highly recommend taking a look at that one. RTThread Studio, there's a talk on that. Really exciting stuff going on there, and you can see that it, you know, has support for a couple of RISC-V boards there. Just there on the screen, that has some really useful data that you can find. So I highly recommend you go download and try that out. It's really a robust solution, and it provides some really, really great features. Lastly, here on the RTThread world, I just wanted to call out this Hacksterio design challenge that's going on. So the contest has already begun. They received 536 applicants, which is pretty amazing. The submissions for those projects close in 45 days, and there's some really great prizes there. So some really exciting stuff going on here, and we're excited to see RTThread partnering with Hacksterio. Hacksterio has been a great partner for RISC-V, working in the open source communities to get folks working on some really interesting projects. So go check that out, and really excited to see the projects there. So I've included a few links here. I'm sure most of you have it to RTThread's website and the GitHub repository, but I also threw in the link to the D1 or to the developer board program, specifically calling out the D1 board. There are a few other boards available there. Again, hard to get a hold of hardware right now, but as we do get a hold of it, we'll be shipping that out. So I'll just go over the road ahead really quickly. We have a lot of ecosystem growth going on, and so I'll just kind of breeze through this, but please feel free to shoot any questions my way. Happy to answer any questions over email if you see something on this and you need more info. This is the eye chart of work we've been doing. So quite a bit of stuff going on. Just last year alone, we ratified a vector specification, crypto scaler, bitmanip, hypervisor, virtual memory. There's a lot of stuff that we did last year that we're really excited about. And we have all those documents published, and we're looking to roll it all together into a finalized document this year. This year, we still have a ton of work going on. Specifically for folks on this call, I'd call out bfloat 16, which I know folks have been waiting for. We're going to ratify that specification, but also code size and vector floating point are going to happen. Fast interrupts and ZMMUL. So ZMMUL is just multiplication with division turned off. So that's something that I know a lot of folks in the embedded space have been looking at. And then also total store ordering is going to happen this year. We're also working to get packed SIMD out this year. We're really excited about that. That has been a lot of work, as you can imagine. So ratifying that specification is going to come as make a lot of folks happy. And then finally, in 2023, we're already looking forward to things like matrix operations. So some really excited stuff going on in the future. This is the ISA hardware map. I'm not going to go over these individually, but this is all the hardware stuff that we're working on specifically for the ISA. Again, a lot of the stuff here like ZMMUL and total store ordering and packed SIMD are really exciting. But we also have a formalized embedded standard that's already being used, 16-bit register standard that's already implemented, but that we're actually going to ratify. So we're excited about that. In software, we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. You heard Mohammed talk about AI and ML. So all that voice and real-time analytics and vision stuff. We have a SIG that's currently tasked with working on that. So they're going to be spinning out task groups to do work in those areas. Really excited to see the stuff that they come out with. Then we've got tools and performance stuff. Specifically, I'd call it the work going on around QEMU, as that work, especially the QEMU stuff that I think is going to be in the next year or so is going to be really exciting and rolling in a lot of this standardized extensions that have come out in the past year or so. We do have a pretty robust security roadmap as well. So we already have a trusted execution environment framework, sort of a lowest layer, the physical memory protection, but we're slowly working to build the entire stack. There's a lot of pieces that need to be in place to launch a trusted application. So we have groups working on that. We also have groups working on control flow integrity, and then also a lot of work going on in crypto and blockchain, and some side channel attack work. So tons of really exciting work going on. Highly recommend that you come check it out. I've left links here both to the RISC-V GitHub repository that sort of branches out to all the different parts of RISC-V and all the work going on from the ISA to the software and through to emulation. All that work you can find on GitHub. There's also our mailing lists. Those are read-only for the public, but if you want to participate on those mailing lists, I highly encourage you to become a member. I'll remind everyone individual membership is free, but if your company is interested in you joining us, also feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk to you about corporate membership. So yeah, these are all the places you really need to get involved. And we really look forward to folks from the real-time community getting involved. So as I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate being here and look forward to seeing all the work that happens in the coming year.
Well, thank you so much, Stephano. That was great. We have time for just a couple of questions if people want to post them in the chat. then well, that's not a question. I want to win a giveaway. It's not a question.
No, that's great. We've got the developer board program, so hopefully between the giveaways here and the developer board program, you'll end up with some hardware.
Yeah. I'm just tremendously excited, Stephano, to see how RISC-V is just exploding onto the scene. It's like wherever I turn around these days, there's a new development.
Yeah, we're definitely the growth in the community has been exceptional over the past few years, and the work that's on deck for the coming year is really exciting. So, yeah, we're excited to see where it goes. You've got my email address there and Twitter handle. Please feel free to reach out and ask questions offline. I'm happy to answer any questions folks might have.
Okay, well, so there's a couple coming in here. One says RISC-V, any assembly book provided?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a great question. So I assume they mean like assembly training and assembly manuals, that sort of thing. So yeah,
I wasn't sure if they meant assembly language.
Yeah, so the RISC-V assembly language, we do have a tutorial that's going to be coming out this year. We've got a professor from Germany that's working on it, and so that'll be published. And then we also are going to be publishing just some sort of green card type handy documents that you can use as well.
Okay. Oh, there's all questions coming in here. Which training board do you suggest to begin for RISC-V?
Really, whatever one you can get your hands on.
Yeah, these days, that's true.
All the ones on that list in that slide are currently available. Again, if you can get your hands on them. But I would call out SparkFun. SparkFun has the Red 5 boards. Those are really great boards for folks who are just interested in just getting started, who are very new, especially to assembly language programming. I'd recommend those.
Okay, is there a channel to request to have some software protocol be implemented?
Sorry, a channel for what?
There's a question here. Is there a channel to request to have a software protocol implemented?
Oh, yes.
So, like USB TMC.
Right. Yeah. So again, with the membership drive, if you're interested in joining as a member, I highly recommend starting there because we have a software committee that you could send those emails to if membership is an option. If membership isn't an option, which is totally understandable, we do have mailing lists that are public that are on Google. So it's called SW-Dev. If you just Google RISC-V SW-DEV, that's where you can go to post questions publicly about software type protocols. And so if you had any questions about how to start up a group or how to publish one, I would start there. But really just joining as a member, even as a free individual member, you'd get access to the software committee, which is software@lists.riscv.org. And that's where all of that communication happens.
Okay, one last quick one. Does RISC-V provide a memory management unit, MMU?
So there isn't hardware implementations that are provided by RISC-V International. We'd like to stay sort of agnostic when it comes to implementation, so we don't provide one. But there are implementations out there that you can find for memory management units, and you can go to the RISC-V website. There's actually a whole area of the website devoted to looking up different implementations that are out there.